Hey, everybody! This is Jacob with the Can't Sit Still podcast. Joining me as always is Delavan.
Heyo.
And we booted our Alex. He's out of it again. We upgraded, and we have our friends today here from Mind Grenade. Guys, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
I'm Jason.
I'm Hector.
Hey, so how long is it going to take until Alex is replaced by the Cricket officially as the third host of the
Cricket
podcast?
has been slowly introducing its way into every single person's household. He was so excited. We were playing video games with him the other day. And he was like, hold on. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? And he just ran out of the room and then came back with a Cricket and a Kleenex. And I think that was the highlight of his week. He was so happy because he finally got to kill the Cricket. That was 24/7.
That was his competition. So
that was, and then
Cricket, yeah, because the Cricket who has brought more topics to the podcast, Alex or the Cricket?
Oh man, it'd have to be the Cricket.
Oh, the Cricket for sure.
The Cricket, okay.
For sure. But here's the thing. So he told me after, because we were still playing video games after Jacob ended up leaving, and he told me, he was like, I wasn't able to sleep the same later that night. He was like, I kind of missed having that Cricket there, and he was like, I'm still not sleeping right. And I was like, wow, that Cricket really did a number to you, because the Cricket that's at our studio his name's Bon Jovi.
Yeah,
the Cricket he had.
I got some bad news about Bon Jovi too, by the way.
Is Bon Jovi gone?
He was found inside of the dog cage today. The dog went ahead and stomped on him on accident. I don't know how he pulled it off. I don't know why the Cricket jumped in the dog cage, but it did, and he's no more.
Not actually Bon Jovi.
No.
He didn't jump into it.
No,
it's just
it's we do a lot of Twitch streaming on twitch.tv/hipstercaius, and his chat got to name our Cricket Bon Jovi is what they ended up landing on. I think some runner-ups were Octopus. What was some other runner-ups? I think there were some weird ones.
There was, I don't even
like haircut, just like random words.
I've slept since then, but yeah, the best one we got was Bon Jovi, and we were like, "That's perfect, let's go for it." And they submitted points in order to be able to do it, and that was the one that won. So we're pretty happy with that. Pretty good name. Then what his was Craig the Cricket, and then
the one in your house was just
we never even got to name him by the time that we were able to get it going. So but ideally we would like to be able to replace Alex with a Cricket. Now, at the same time, or anything living whatsoever, because I just feel like they would be able to bring more topics to the conversation.
He'll never live that down. We're going to bring that up every time.
He will not. Well, and then with the episode that we just ended up doing, he ended up picking a topic that we had already done in the past.
That's true. So, yeah, if you guys, if anyone's listened yet, he did pick a topic that we had talked about a week he was gone. And so he felt really embarrassed that he doubled down like 3 weeks later.
No, wait a minute. I brought a topic to this podcast about transparent toilets in Japan. Is that going to be okay?
Oh, no. A third time.
Man. You know what? But you guys have a whole fresh new take to it, so I think it will work just fine.
His take was just going to be ask us what our opinions on it was. And we were like, Alex, buddy, I hate to tell you, but we already did that. So this is a podcast where we go through news and current event topics, and we try and make them as funny and informative as possible. And your guys' podcast, the Mind Grenade podcast, is I'd hate to butcher it, but it's about like pop culture, comic book, movie, TV, video game discussion, which is my bread and butter. We found you from a flyer that was hanging up in a Cold Stone ice cream shop.
Oh, awesome! That's working.
I took a picture of it. And then Delvin was like, wait, send that to me. I'm going to listen to those guys tomorrow at work. And I was like, yeah, let's pop them on. Let's see how it is. And then like a couple weeks later, Delvin's like, do you think we could get them on our podcast? Email them, man. I don't know.
That's that was at the beginning. I'm sorry to interrupt. At the beginning of this year, 2020, the infamous year of our Lord, my nephew, my 10-year-old nephew, and I were talking, and he's trying to get a YouTube channel off the ground. He puts up videos and stuff of him playing Roblox or Minecraft or Pokemon.
Hell yeah.
And he just, one day was like, you know what the best promotion is. It's a word of mouth. And I was like, boom. I was like migraine. I was just, my brain exploded. I was like, this is, from the mouth of babes. And I noticed just promoting the way I've been promoting for years now is just posting something real quick after an episode goes up. I would just post something on Facebook and Twitter, and that really never moved the needle very much at all. And I was like, you know what? That's just, and plus I don't care to go on to the social websites that often. So I was like, I'm going to try flyers, and I'm going to put them up, post them around town. And which I have. My second kind of wave, or second part of my tactic here, is to then send some out to friends in other states, and then have them put them up in random coffee shops and whatnot.
Oh, see, we hadn't thought about that one. We thought we were like, hey, we could do the flyer thing too, but going interstate with it, that would have never hit me.
No,
right? Because that's the thing. There's local. There's other local podcasts that I've kind of come across, and it seems that they don't take into account that it's the World Wide Web. It's like, what I'm saying, like just kind of stay in your own little pond is when there's an ocean out there. It's kind of so. Actually, this kind of guerrilla style, just going out and putting up flyers and stuff, has actually worked a lot. But like, we've gotten quite a bump from it, and I think I only have like 4 or 5 flyers out there in Springfield and in our little town, and it has given us quite a bump that Facebook hasn't the entire time.
Well, here's the thing: you got us 2 nerds to come and listen, and so obviously it's working in some form of fashion, and that's what we need to do, honestly, because we've been trying to figure out the best way to grow, and word of mouth has been the best way. We kind of posted some stuff, and it ended up working for us a little bit, but for the most part, it's been strictly word of mouth. Of like, some of our friends have said, talk to their friends, posted it on Reddit, put it in various different areas, and it has ended up working out for us a little bit. But we were kind of thinking about doing something along the lines of that, because we were like, that's a really good idea. And then now you're adding in the fact that we should have done, where we should do it, state to state. That would be way better.
Well, were you guys just I'm not sure if I made it onto the recording or not. Somebody in Australia, or did you say somebody?
Yeah. We have, let's see, we have one listener in Ireland. Don't know if they're return listeners. One listener in Germany, and one listener in Australia. So we don't know how we got over there, because our original plan was we have one friend on Discord who has this big server with a bunch of different people, and kind of like everyone just invites themselves and then invites their friends, and they were so supportive they put it up all the time. Every time we posted a new podcast, and had their friends go listen to it, and they've seemed to stay. All their friends that listened to it from the beginning seem to stay and actually grow a little bit. So all of our listeners that we have now, I was super thankful for our friends just to help us out from the get-go, not only listening themselves, but spreading it every way they could.
I was playing in a...
No, please.
No, I'm sorry. I was playing in a softball game because I'm fat enough now that the only game I can play is slow pitch softball. And so I was playing there the other day, and I hit a single, and I got to first base, and the guy came up to me, and he was like, "Can't Sit Still podcast." And I was like, "Yeah, how did you know about it?" And it was like, "Well, one of your teammates, one week when you weren't here, I brought up a topic that was brought up on the podcast, and he was like, "Oh, you should go back and listen to this, see what it is that they think." And he started listening and just continued to listen. And so I ended up texting JJ there, and I was just like, "Well, that's official. We're famous now." We had a person that just randomly came up to us and said, "Hey, I know you from this thing."
Little did he know he was actually wearing the T-shirt at the time.
Yeah, I was. I was wearing the T-shirt, and I'm like, "Yeah, it is me."
Was it JJ? Yeah. JJ didn't believe you, right, when you first said that?
No, he did not. He did not. He called me a liar.
Yeah, this is the first thing I said was liar. I just was like, no, didn't happen.
He thought maybe it was Alex in disguise or something.
Or I just thought he was hamming it up. Like maybe he told someone about it, and then that other person was just like, "Oh, I've listened to that," and I was like, "Ah, see, technically he did recognize you, but you told him." No, there's just someone who just straight up came to him and was like, "Hey, you're the guy."
Yeah. I mean, he knew because of the fact that he saw us on the YouTube channel, and then something that I had seen was that if you want some growth, a good way to do that is by adding in a lot of video. If you add in video, apparently it's supposed to increase your the likelihood of people finding you online by almost 30%. And so, luckily enough, I had the episodes already out of talking and everything, and he was able to recognize me from that.
Okay.
That, and I've also begged, pleaded with my parents to please do not listen to the podcast. It's not for you. It's nothing you're going to be happy with. And yet they listen to every single one. And every single week I get criticisms of stop saying the F word so much. And don't tell Delavan I said that about him. And no, that's not the right story. He said it wrong. Or something like that. And I'm like, guys, I've said it before. I'll say it again.
Hey, JJ. Your camera is frozen, and
That's
it is
perfect.
the weirdest look that I mean, you looked so menacing, and it honestly probably should have kept it because that's pretty good. It's such a. I always freeze in a smile, and he now apparently freezes in a look of I can't stand to listen to Delavan anymore. Please get me out of here. Like blink twice if you're being held captive. Oh boy, this is good.
For our listeners, so why did you guys decide to do a podcast? Actually, you guys do 2 podcasts, right? Kansas Still. You guys also do Nuggets of Nothing as well. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. We do Nuggets of Nothing as well. But as for Kansas Still, really we had talked about it for like the longest time. Like we had started trying to do the podcast for the longest time, and for some reason it just couldn't get off the ground. Like our schedules wouldn't work, or the quality of the content, we weren't really sure what we were going to do because there just wasn't a whole lot. And then finally we kind of sat together and we were like, here's a great idea, is that there's weird news topics out there. Let's just read those news topics and see what it is that we can come up with. We always kind of wanted to do something with improv. Jacob, are you good, man? What's happening over here? Can you even hear us? I think he's just gone. All right. That's not a great start. Just so you know, he never has the issue with the camera. It's always me.
Your internet. I'm blaming your internet.
You're blaming my internet for your technical issues. I got you. That's something that JJ has adopted well, is when in doubt, blame Delavan for anything and everything.
Okay. All right. We'll
I stepped in gum. It must be Delavan's fault. But yeah, so we more or less like just said we should just do this. There's no reason not to. We went out, got some equipment, probably spent way more on equipment than we should have for a beginning podcast that we didn't know if it was going anywhere or not. But we were like, you know what? You invest into it and you think that it's going to be something, maybe you make it into something. That's just kind of what it is. And then now all that equipment is sitting in my garage because we're now doing this from our homes. So money well spent.
Wow. Nice.
Hey, I got one of the microphones though, so it's not completely wasted.
It's a good point. And you also have a camera that apparently doesn't work.
Nope.
Real quick to comment on Kansas Still. Me personally, my opinion on your guys' podcast, great name, because that's a big part of it. The logo, I'm a big fan of. Like these sound like little things, but really,
it makes it come together. I can't tell you how many days and meetings and to be fair, one drunken night that a list, like we had a list of like over 100 podcast names, and we're like, none of these are sticking. Like, what do we do? Like,
you know it when you hear it.
And can't sit still just because they told me, Jacob, you need to start sitting still. You can't keep moving. And I was like, hold on, I think we got it. I think we did it.
It's a great name for a podcast, and it's also for your guys' podcast too, not just in general. But and then also the like. I'm still trying to like refine this thing, our podcast, but like, there's like there's a podcast I was a guest on a couple times called Deprogrammed, and the premise to their podcast was like pretty brilliant. I thought it's like the one host invites two people onto his podcast and then they focus on one musician. The people he invites on are huge fans of that musician, and then they try to, like, between the three of them, put together a starter kind of playlist of that musician.
Oh,
and
okay, that's awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a great idea, but it's so simple that, it's like, oh fuck, I wish I would have thought of that. And your guys' premise, the premise for your guys' podcast is, when I first became aware of it, I was like, God damn it, that's brilliant. The fishbowl with the topics and stuff, because then it kind of, you are free to kind of go on tangents and stuff, but at least you have something to focus on when you need to focus on something. And the idea of taking a topic and just completely just hammer away at it until you guys are done talking about it. It's a pretty impressed with the whole thing. I'm wondering, what were you guys always going to do YouTube, like a YouTube video thing along with it, or?
Well, we've always had delusions of grandeur. So we were always just like, dude, we're going to grow. We're going to do great things. We're hilarious people. And so we always at one point planned on doing the video podcast. Now, the difference between me and Delvin and why I think that we work better together is I am afraid to make any leap, and I'm afraid to cross the street without looking both ways 800 times. And Delvin's just kind of like, nah, Carl, stop. And so he's just like, you guys want to start out episode 1 video? I'm like, we don't even know how to work the recording information yet, man. We haven't even figured out how to edit. And so that, I think episode 11 was our first one on video, where I just finally compromised, and I'm like, fine, let's do video. Let's see how it goes. I set up my set of a bunch of random doodads and binders and toys and 2 TVs that might work. They're not plugged in. Who knows? And so and then we also had the plans of like skits and TikToks, even though it might be gone now.
Yeah.
And so we always kind of planned on just being, because this is what we've always wanted to do. We grew up and we were young enough that the big YouTube boom, when everyone started making what was called YouTube money, and just like you can make money off of it, and it just seemed like such a dream job. But we never really could do it. But we were all over at my house one day, and we were just like, well, why don't we just try? Because you're not going to get there by not trying. And that's Delvin again. That's Delvin just going like, well, just who knows? Just do it. And then me just going like, but think of all the things that could go wrong. And then Alex is, of course, there going like, do I have to be a part of it? And we're like, yeah, you do. We're wrapping you in on this.
But for all the flack that we give Alex, he is part of the glue that really makes this stick together. Because if it's just Jacob and I, as everyone we do is yell. We just yell at each other. That's all. He's right. It's him saying, "Well, I don't think we can do this," and it's me going, "No, we are going to do it. Let's get it done." And that just conflicts so much that Alex is in the between, saying, "Yeah, why the hell not? Go for it."
He's the mediator.
Yeah, he's the middle ground of that one. Not to say that he doesn't start some stuff too, because he does.
He has.
But it's nothing compared to what it is that JJ and I end up doing with one another. But that being said, though, there is no other person that I would love to be doing this with than that guy sitting in that chair with the Nickelodeon hat on right now. And the reason being is because me alone, boring as all hell. Doesn't work. Me with him, still pretty boring, but he brings the comedy to it. And so when we first started this, I pretty much said, there's going to be 3 of us. Jacob, you're going to be the creative director. I'll be the money, and Alex will be the tech guy.
He's the wallet. That's what kind of how we talk to him. That's how he's known. But yeah, it was a very flattering moment where I had Delavan, Alex, my friend Caius. He's the one that does all the Twitch streaming. Delavan's fiance, my wife, my mom, and all of them say like, well, you have to be involved or it's just not going to work. You're the one who has to do it. And then that came to the point, it was very flattering. And yet I was like, oh, so that means I come up with all the ideas. We recorded 9 podcasts before we actually released the first pilot, because we worked on what's the premise, and then we were like, well, let's figure it out as we go. And we just wanted it to be so much of us talking because we love our conversations. But I just said that who cares? We're three nameless faces from the Midwest, so who's gonna listen to us and our opinions on everything? But I said we needed to have it be just a little bit more narrowed down, and all of our conversations in real life either revolve around guess what I just found out, or did you hear about? So it's like, did you see that thing in the news, or guess what I just found out that happened? So that's why we have two podcasts now. We have Can't Sit Still, which is us going, did you just hear? And then Nuggets of Nothing is, did you know what I found out the other day? And so it flowed so naturally with how we usually have our conversations. And I was very once we finally did the pilot and we turned it off, I was like, we have a lot of workshopping to do, but that's it. We found it.
Nice.
And then Alex's old roommate does graphic design as a side project. So he threw up this logo in like maybe a day.
Yeah, I was telling these guys that I was like, they have somebody, they know somebody with some graphic design background, but it looks really sharp, man. It looks really good.
I will say though, the Nuggets of Nothing, and you can tell I was the one that actually came up with that logo design. I did that one myself.
Okay.
Took him 10 minutes of work.
It took me 10 minutes, and I was like, man, you can tell this took 10 minutes for sure.
It works though.
It does. It works. It's good enough for a starter.
You guys have changed yours a couple of times, your logos, right? I feel like when I first started watching, and then, or not watching, but listening, and then the last time I went on at work and I just clicked on a random episode, I was like, wait, is this a new picture?
Yeah. Just constantly trying to improve.
The one you got now is pretty sharp, honestly.
Oh, thank you. That's me. Yeah,
it's
artwork. But I want the flyer that you saw was kind of thrown together by a friend, and I kind of want. I like it. It obviously it's working, and here we are. But I'd like to, man. I really would like something a little bit more punk rock, kind of more.
Oh yes,
I can see that.
Like
we can make the skull like have flames, like the Offspring logo.
There you go, something a little bit more in that direction than the kind of, because the flyer right now it has a very kind of comic booky kind of
maybe like the flames, but because it's like kind of like an X-ray, right?
Yeah.
What you could have is that like piercings showing up on the X-ray. So like piercings in the lips and ears and nose that just show up on the X-ray.
This is why he's the creative control.
Yeah, so you guys know where I'm trying to go. So that's where I'm trying to go with the logo. But it seems like once you do figure out what your show is, then at least for me, like I'm constantly, even to this day, like we started the podcast launched in 2014. Even till to this day, I'm trying to constantly refine it and make it super easy. I think it's one because I am trying to approach it as a show with content, but also it's my personal social media. So ideally, I don't. I shut down. Rather than going on Twitter and posting my thoughts or on Facebook, I can just do it here in the Mind Grenade studio, and that's how I social media. So it's kind of, the podcast has kind of got multiple uses for me. It's one, I do think about the listenership and growing it and making it as much of a legitimately a show. But also, it's partly self-indulgent too.
Yeah.
In the same way, a Reddit account or a Twitter account or account. So, but like I said, with the legitimizing it, I promotion and social, somewhat of a social media presence, I guess. I mean, it's been a while since we've done very much on Facebook, like putting up.
Yeah, I've posted a few clips on there for a while, which got a little bit of attention, but I haven't done that in probably
what
last
do you
10
guys,
episodes, maybe. Or
what do you
episodes?
guys think? Like, I don't feel like Facebook people listen to.
It's been
everybody's got their
It's been so moved. Like Facebook is such a different generation now, And so, because he even asked me, he was like, "What should we do?" And I was like, "Gmail, Twitter to start out with, and then YouTube channel." Because he was like, "Should we make our own Facebook?" And I was like, "No, it's not gonna amount to anything." I was like, I think the people that are doing that, I think that there would be probably a net gain from it, but I was like, honestly, I feel like everyone would go on Twitter, because Twitter is also such a place of news. That's where a lot of news topics come. That's where Alex gets almost all of his topics off Twitter. I get all of mine on Reddit. And I think Delvin finds his in like a burning trash can. And so we just decided to stick to like the Twitter, the Twitter, and then Gmail for someone to just toss stuff right at me. And to this day, we've only got one Gmail. We've only got one email, and it was just me logging onto my cell phone and telling me that I'm on a new device. That was the only email we've ever got. But
that was something that we had kind of, sorry to interrupt there, by the way, JJ, but so that was something that we kind of discussed about here as recently, is that we would like to start trying to implement listener stories in, because it's nice for us to be able to come up with our own stories and then talk about it all in general with everybody. Like, but obviously, like, so I bring a topic, I know the topic. Jacob doesn't know the topic, and Alex doesn't know the topic. But if we could have listeners to submit in stories, then we can just, barely read over the topic and then be able to try to have somewhat of a discussion on it, of something that we're all a little unaware of, that would kind of help. And then also it feels like it would help the listeners try to interact with the show that we're having, which is really what we want to do. We want it to be a discussion. We want it to be something that we all have together.
Something we've always wanted to, from the beginning, we want to be a podcast that definitely has a lot of love for the listeners and people. The interaction was so big. And from the beginning of it, when we were like, how do we want to format it? We all kind of threw into a hat like what we listened to, and we kind of described what it was. And my biggest podcast I've listened to for so long is The Weekly Planet, which is an Australian-based podcast. Delvin will attest to this. All of my podcasts are from Australia. I don't know how I got trapped. I don't know how I got trapped in that hole, but they're all Australian podcasts. And they are someone who they've been doing it for like almost 10 years, it seems like. And they have new segments all the time and new bits that they are recurring. And they're very active with their fan base. And I was like, I love that. And I swear to God, if I heard Delvin say, well, what the Mind Grenade guys do is, one more time, I was going to lose it. Every time Delvin was like, well, the Mind Grenade guys, they've been doing this recently from what I've been hearing. And I was like, I know about the Mind Grenade guys. I said, we know about him, Delvin.
Yeah, we've been trying to come up with bits and segments, but also trying to we've trying to reel them into, and not just keep coming up with, I don't want to have like 20 different segments and then not refine them. So I'd like to have at least you want to keep nurturing new ideas, but you need to, just for the show, I try to refine them and try to and then test them out on an episode and then see how they work and see then how to make them make the handful, the 5 out of the 20 that we've worked on, and then refine those and make those good and see if they're working with the audience and stuff. So it's always trial and error, no matter what.
Right. And listener interaction is difficult to get people to email you in or
it's been happening more lately with our iTunes reviews have kind of gone up lately.
Right.
And we don't have a lot even still, but still it's been happening a lot more lately. So it's one of those things where you're it's what I was doing when I first started the podcast was like, okay, I'm gonna try messing around with this and see what that does, and I'll promote on a Tuesday night at 8 p.m. and see what our numbers do then, and then I'll try to promote on a Thursday morning and see what happens then. So it's a bunch of trial and error, just seeing what works. And then also this is kind of a little side note here with trying to figure stuff out is, okay, so are hosting the way we host the MP3s essentially for the web hosting or whatever. Not the web hosting, but the Libsyn or whatever it is that holds the MP3s that we put up. It tells you where you get your numbers, where you get how many downloads you've gotten or plays or whatever. It does tell you geographically. And then that can kind of make you kind of go to your head. You're like, oh shit, we're over here and we're over here. So I was like, but I don't want to give myself that much credit. I want to be like, well, it could be bots somewhere or just some computer that's downloading my podcast in Japan or whatever. I have tested that out. I've gone. I was out of the country a couple years back, and then I downloaded one of my episodes, and then it popped up from where I was downloading it from.
Okay.
So it's partly like you're like you don't want it to go to your head too much. It's like, oh shit, look at all these downloads and blah blah blah. But like at the same time, you're like trying to curb your like try not to get too delusional. You're trying to, it's like, well, like maybe people aren't, maybe, sure, I got this many downloads, but maybe just people aren't listening, a percentage aren't listening to it or whatever. But it's a constant, you're trying to, you're trying to move forward and do it right, but at the same time, you're, oh boy, I'm kind of getting lost in the weeds here. Yeah, it's
not get too high, not get too low.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
getting lost in the weeds is what we should have named our podcast.
No, that's what I do. If you notice that, okay. So with our podcast, we do where it's all four of us, and then I go off and do an episode just so we have an episode every week. I'll do one on my own, and partly the reason for that, and that's part of the reason. One of the reasons I do one on my own is so I can get better at it. And I know one of my weaknesses is that I can go off on a mission in the sense that here's an idea I want to get across, but then I kind of get a little too lost in the weeds, so I need to reel myself in. So I that's why I do those episodes by myself, to get better at that. And one thing I do want to improve also is like you guys were saying with improv. Like I think on our podcast, I think all four of us are pretty funny. I think Matt's a kind of a natural when it comes to podcasting, even though I think we have more experience than Matt does on the podcast. But I think like I was looking into improving or taking improv classes just for the benefit of the podcast, because the whole
yes and sort of
exactly.
being able to work better off each other.
I knew Matt was going to stay because the very first episode we had Matt on was I brought a segment where we literally talked about statistics of what people had gone to the emergency room and what objects they had stuck in their butt and had to have go to the emergency room for. That was hole in one. That was back in 2018. that was half the episode. We did that, and he played along, and it was really funny. And I was like, I think it's like that was going to be a make or break. It's like, is he going to play along with this, or is this going to be like, wow, what was that? I'm gonna not come back again. But he's been here ever since. So we reeled him in with the butt stuff, and he's been on the podcast ever since. Yeah. So,
luckily for us, we've all known each other for so long. So me and Alex, we met each other in Boy Scouts. I think I was 14 and he would have been 11 or 12. I think 11. And then me and Delvin went to high school together. And it was one of those things where we just sat at the same table and we didn't know each other too well. So all we did was just kind of like do a bit every day and then be like, that was funny. All right, see ya. And then we never talked for like 2 years. And then we met at a party. I was in college and you like just graduated, and I was like, oh, hey, what's up, man? And then we were just like, oh, wait, I think I love you. I think we're best friends now. Because we just talked all night and we were just making each other laugh. And then Caius has been like in our friend group for like a long time, and the original bit was that I hated him because he just kept stealing all my friends away during the summer. They'd be hanging out at my house and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go hang out with Kai. So I'm gonna see you guys later. I'm gonna drive to Ashland or whatever." And so I'd be like, "Who the hell's this Caius guy stealing all my friends?" And now he lives with me. He's downstairs right now. And so luckily we've just had this like rapport with each other for years of making each other laugh. And I think we all have, like, Delvin is probably, he brings up like the most interesting points. Like I think Delvin always brings up points that I don't think about. So I'll try and like set a joke or set the stage. Delvin will bring up the points like, "Well, have you considered X, like A, B, and C?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't. Like, that's hilarious." And then Alex is such a good straight man. And then every once in a while, he'll just have a bit that just cracks me up so much, but he's just such a straight man. And he doesn't even realize it because we had this conversation. He's like, "You guys think I'm the straight man?" And I'm like, "You said that with no cadence in your voice at all." Absolutely. I don't know any other role you would fill. Like,
Okay.
it was, it was just fell together so naturally, and something that, like, I always said was, I'm so glad that my friend group is someone who just tries to make everyone laugh and try and be funny as much as we can.
Yeah. The chemistry is definitely there. Yeah, we've noticed on your guys on Can't Sit Still. On Mind Grenade, I thought, I think the chemistry is working well for us. And then like the listener interaction, the iTunes reviews have kind of point. That's always been the one thing on all the reviews is that the chemistry between the four of us is working out, which I've noticed. But it's one of those things. You're to my point. The point I was trying to make earlier before I got lost in those weeds was that you have a goal. You want this to be as professional-ish as possible.
Yeah.
But you also the listener feedback kind of helps you gauge where that's at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Oh,
no, sorry, I was just gonna. I remember you guys. No, it's okay. I remember. I think you, Jacob, had just done this. I think your episode that released today, as we're recording, you said that we had a professionalism to us, and like it made me chuckle because, like, the last episode we just talked about, like, I spent a whole thing about a zoo review about an elephant with an erection, and I was like,
"Well, I admit that because
kind of professional." I agree. Yeah.
One day I was cleaning around the house, and I was like, "I'm just gonna toss these guys on," and I think I just went like, click, and just whatever I landed on, I was like going to listen to that podcast. And it was just, I think it was the one where, I think it was by 4th of July, and I think you guys were just like, "Oh, I'm just like, we're just going to talk to each other today," and like, no, I don't think you guys had any in particular topics. And something that we get a lot on our podcast is people always text Delvin and they just say, "It feels like I'm just sitting in the room with the boys." And I was like, that's what I got from you guys. I was like, look, but from you guys, I was like, well, no one's yelling at each other. I was like, all of our friends yell at each other. That's what we do. We just scream at everyone. I'm sure you've listened to the Great Potter debate, which is just something that kind of happens very often in our friend group. I think I yelled at you guys last night for something. I can't remember what. We were playing Call of Duty, and I think I yelled again.
Yeah, you do, man. That's just it's kind of how it goes.
And so I was like, well, they don't call each other like fucking like dickheads or like cocksuckers or anything like that. But I will just go into town like on Delavan and just try and make him sad because you made me mad.
We definitely have a thing with Ian and Matt going. That's not really yelling, but it's I don't know if you guys or Delvin's heard enough episodes where he's noticed Matt makes mention of gives Ian pretty much a hard time about every other episode that he's on. Where I don't know, there was a recent episode where he's talking about Ian wasn't on, and he thanked everybody for the Patreon so that we could get it would use to kick Ian off the episode or whatever. So we don't, it's not a pure yelling at, but we definitely have a little of something going on that's mostly fake, but going on between Matt and Ian, and Matt trying to get Ian pushed off the podcast and such. So,
and I will just say that I'm the only one who has a college degree. They hate that.
Bringing this back up.
I'll do that at dinner too. It gets brought up a lot more than just on the podcast. But I can't do it anymore because one of our recent friends just graduated, and not only did he graduate tying me, he's going to get his doctorate. And so I'm like, well, this isn't fun anymore. It's not fun anymore.
I'm outnumbered. Three of the hosts have doctorates on this podcast, and I'm the one. But I'm the one that gets to push them around, though.
And that's what they say whenever I get a little too cocky. They say, "Isn't your degree in history? Isn't that worthless?"
Oh, damn.
And I'm like, well, okay, but I had a good time with it. You know, my thesis is sitting over there in one of those binders, just collected dust, which my thesis was about comic books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was about the great comic book panic of the 1950s through like the 70s.
Yeah.
And my professor, it was a class of 3. It's not like I was really, it wasn't, there was not a whole lot of competition to be the better paper. But one chick saw that and she was like, oh, well, if we're going off the rails, I'm going to do Disney. And then, so it was me doing comic books, one chick doing Disney, and the third girl did the most history paper out of all of us, and it was like racial discrimination as opposed to Asian Americans in the 1830s. And I was like, yeah, that's the most history one of these history papers. The rest of us are basically just walking cartoons.
Hey Hector, I gotta ask. You just shot something a second ago.
Thank you. I'm
did
so glad you
make
that
it?
Up.
I kind of figured that he was wondering as well. Did you make it?
Okay, definitely. Thank God.
If I would have known that, I would have yelled goal.
I saw you throw it, and I was like, I have to find out if he made that.
Yeah, I needed to know. I couldn't wait to the end. I had to know now. Something I wanted to ask. So, how did you guys all kind of come together? You, Ian, and Jason, and Matt.
I started the podcast. I'm sure people have noticed, and I've been meaning to bring it up. On the feed, you can only go back so far. I forget which episode.
I think 150 is where it starts.
Yeah, that's when I rebooted the thing. I started in 2014 with a high school buddy of mine. It didn't work out. He quit. And then I was going to keep the thing going regardless. Struggled a little bit. Had kind of an in-between person kind of jump in. Somebody that had some FM experience here in town, some terrestrial radio here in town, but that didn't last very long. That lasted like 3 or 4 episodes. And then I just kept it going, kind of hobbling along. And then Jason, who we've been friends for 7 years or so now, from work.
Right.
And I've always wanted to have Jason on. Ideally, I wanted Jason to be my co-host for a long time, even before he became my co-host. We got along. We were similar sense of humor, a lot of the same interests, pop culture wise. And then, but Jason's a super busy. Like I said, the rest of my co-hosts have doctorates, and Jason's a family guy. I'm not. I'm a single dude, and Jason's got a big family and stuff. So
yeah.
So it just made it at the time. The scheduling was difficult because he had young children. He still does, but not as young.
Mm-hmm. I've got 4 kids, guys. It took us a while to figure out where all these kids were coming from, and then once we did, I think we finally got it stopped. So
once we figured it out,
yeah, it takes a little bit to figure it out there, and then you kind of like step into it. You're like, oh, okay, that's where I should stop.
2 of them are black, and that's weird. We're still trying to figure out how that happened.
So then that started. Then Ian jumped in with the reboot kind of action, and then another coworker, Adrian, was helping out a little bit. The scheduling didn't work so much for Adrian, but it worked for Ian. So Ian kind of became a mainstay. Jason was becoming more regular, and then
pooping a lot.
Yeah, Jason likes to stay regular. And then Matt had come in to cover for Ian.
He was covering for Ian, yeah.
And then I realized that I call Matt the talent. Matt's just naturally a good a podcaster. Like I said, even though I've got several years on him, he seems to just kind of fit well with the format. And then we've kept it going since then that way.
Yeah.
I've got all those older episodes on a hard drive. I'll gladly throw up any kind of episode if anybody like who was on any of those episodes before. If they ever want me to throw them up, I will. But I kind of wanted just to kind of like I said, I like curating the podcast and making it as nice and as possible. So I kind of just put those episodes not in a. I'd hate for anybody to accuse me of putting those episodes on a paywall because no one would ever want to pay for those episodes. But
like
so
an ask wall. Like if you guys ask for it, you can have it, but I'm not going to put them out there without any incentive.
Right, exactly. So like I said, we those episodes I started I think I named that first episode Reboot or something like that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And so the show is essentially what it is now is kind of what I've been wanting it to be for a long time. I want it to be to have kind of that premise of the pop culture kind of topics, but it could be about anything. It can go off the rails whenever it wants. And like really, it could be. We can talk about anything because I'm that way. I could talk about anything. But
we have the just definition of our friendship that we came up with the other day is that we have an opinion on everything, but we care about nothing. So that we could talk about anything. I care about it. I can tell you my thoughts on everything you can bring up. I don't care about it, but I lean one way or the other on everything.
That's it to a T.
Mm-hmm. So it promotes conversation to that way, I think. I think ideally a Mind Grenade episode will be part just open discussion conversation, and then a little bit of content at the end with like a little segment or something like that, or like what you guys do, which is great, which is a segment on other people's podcasts, is a new segment. Like for us, we would do like an open discussion for about 20 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that, and then something at the end with like a little news bit or a game or something like that, just to kind of have some kind of focused content in there at the end. That it's not all, but like I do every once in a while, like that. Let's just off the cuff and we'll just talk about whatever. And sometimes those episodes turn out really well.
Yeah. We've done episodes where literally we have nothing prepared. We just sit down, we start talking, and then an hour later, Hector looks. It's usually at me because I'm usually the problem. Things that keep going and going and going. So I bring all kinds of ridiculous stuff, and Hector's like the governor on my motor. Where he just looks at me. He's like, "Dude, we got this. Just stop. Stop, man."
Man, we have that same thing right here where Delvin literally texted me the other day and was like, "You got to shut up more." Like we've gone way over our time on the past 4 podcasts because you just keep talking.
When I was saying earlier about coming up with a bunch of bits and segments and stuff, is like Jason will just keep coming up with new stuff, and then I have to kind of like a great governor, just kind of like So and I think in any creative endeavor, I think you need that person to be the governor, or or like my favorite band that broke in my lifetime is Radiohead, and reading about those guys, it's democratic. Like it's the same 5 guys since they formed in college, and it's now 40 years later or 30 years later, however long later. Yeah, about closer to 30 years, probably 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
They just made it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's that crew is ran. The creative process is ran democratically, except that Tom York, the lead singer, has a veto. He gets the veto, but it sounds like, oh well, then it's not completely democratic. But I feel, and then also they wouldn't have stuck together this long and had that much success. They would have been like, if they had a problem with one person having slightly more power, and they would have broken up years ago, and they wouldn't have had the success that they have now. And it might not work. And I might be wrong. Like it might not work out that this dynamic might not be for everybody. But for me, from what I've learned, podcasting, I've tried putting like comic books together and stuff. And one person always has to be the captain of the ship, just to kind of like get focused and to just I don't know. It's this is probably gonna be bad of me to say, but like I run the podcast as a democracy, but I'm the dictator in this democracy. But I'm a dictator. I'm a dictator that runs it like a democracy.
Yeah.
So
I equate it more to on our end, where it's like if you guys are familiar with the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you have the Toontown, and then you have the tunnel from Toontown that leads to the town, the LA, and we just take turn on who gets to be the driver. So there's just a bunch of goofy shit, dumb ideas. There's a bunch of stuff that'll fail. Now, who wants to bring what? Everyone can pack a certain amount of stuff in the trunk.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna drive to the normal town.
Yeah, I am definitely the Toontown of this podcast, I would say.
So it is good to have one person kind of like just funnel the chaos a little bit, like your analogy with the Toontown. Yeah, it's so that's pretty much where we're at now. Where I've got Jason coming up with ideas, and Ian and Matt do come up with ideas too. Jason's more of a Springwell with it, and then I have my ideas, but I've got to be the orchestra person, the person with the little whatever the the conductor in the orchestra. And I
remember when. Sorry to interrupt. I remember that the weekend where DC and Warner Brothers just dropped 1,000 trailers. I remember my first thought, I was like, I'm gonna listen to their podcast and see what their take is, because I'm sure they're gonna talk about this. I was like, I gotta listen. I want to know other people's topics, because I think I sent Delvin that day like 12 links, and all I got from him was, "Oh, that's cool."
So I had more of an opinion, but he caught me like in the middle of doing something, so I was just like, "Well, we'll wait until we're on Discord later. We'll talk about it then."
So I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna listen to that Mind Grenade podcast, see it," because I was like, I know someone's gonna bring it up.
I like hearing other people's opinions on the same. Like if you go to I'm trying to think of something. If you go to Disneyland for the weekend, I'm gonna want to, and if I go to Disneyland and you go to Disneyland, I want to hear your perspective on it. It's not gonna really change my perspective on it, but I'd like to hear, like, if a trailer drops, that Dune trailer just dropped. I watched it and I got my impression of it. I want to hear yours to somebody else's. It doesn't mean it's going to change my impression on it, but it might, and it might not. So
I'm pretty
sure.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to say that I'm pretty sure that if Jacob goes to Disneyland or Disney World, the only thing that he's going to do is misquote A Bug's Life from our episode the other day. I just thought I'd go ahead and throw that out. Couldn't have been perfect. You led that in so perfect. I was like, I can't let my opportunity miss here. I have to go ahead and go for it.
Yeah, that's
I know for me personally, growing up I didn't grow up on the internet, because like we've mentioned, I grew up on like a shitty farm that like was basically stuck in 1988 for way too long. And so like we had a tube TV well into cable and plasma TVs that we'd have to hit with a shoe because the tubes would start to go a little too wonky. And so when I finally got the internet, I think it was 14 or 15, I watched so much. And then I kind of started realizing that I wasn't creating my own opinions. I was just cultivating other people's. And I actually kind of took a break, because I used to watch like Philip DeFranco and like Rooster Teeth and all these like really big YouTube channels that talked about news and video games and movies. And I would just catch myself taking their ideas. So I actually put a stop to it. I stopped watching a lot of, other than just reading articles themselves. I don't watch anyone else's interpretation of the news. I play video games, watch movies, and I kind of take how I feel about it. And if I have a hard time like articulating it, I might watch a video from someone who I like trust, and I'll be like, me and this YouTube creator usually have very similar thoughts. Let me see if he articulated it like better than I did. And so that kind of was just like a practice in me. Before I even thought about ever having a podcast, I was just kind of unhappy with my ability to cultivate an argument. So it's really helped me be able to form my own opinion and be way too like loud and yelly about it. But still, I still am able to have my own thoughts. And then I got back into podcasts, and now I'll love listening to podcasts where I'm like, this guy's so wrong. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Or this guy gets it. This guy knows what's going on. And that way I'm not actually just taking someone else's thoughts and running it as my own.
Well, before we get
go ahead, Delvin, jump right in there. He doesn't need to finish.
I'll back off on this one.
I'll end up with a kid. So go ahead.
Whoa.
Well, I was just going to ask, what do you guys think is probably your biggest weakness as of right now? What's something that you think that you could probably improve on, even though you guys have been doing this for so long? I know that you're saying that you constantly want to innovate and make it refined a little bit, and so
they're trying to kick that one guy off the podcast. That's probably their biggest weakness.
That would say our biggest weakness is Ian, but our biggest weakness. I don't know, Hector. Do you have anything off the top of your head?
The thing I've been challenged the most with, or the current challenge is just keeping an episode out every week, which we've been kind of doing.
Yeah, I think we're really in a good stride. We're
because
plenty of content.
Some of the best advice I got at the beginning was that your audience will get used to an episode every week.
We were told the same thing.
Yeah,
right. We were told that schedule is super important.
Right, and preferably the exact same part of the week. So that's the challenge there. And like I said before, is when I do my solo episodes, I just kind of staying a little focused and a little bit more livelier. That's just me personally. I think when we're all four together, for me personally, it's 99% there, and I don't even know what that other 1% is like. I'm just trying to stay as objective. Or
I think when you're on that side of the microphone, you're always going to say that 1% is missing. I think you're always going to want that perfect from yourself, right. Even though from maybe the viewer's perspective, they could be like, these guys really got it down. But I think from your side, you're going to be like, no, we need to do better in X, Y, or Z. Because I know for us, what I would consider is we always do it in one shot. And the idea of the podcast, the premise behind it is you don't tell the other people what you're bringing. So it's really an exercise. Yeah. It's an exercise in improv from the very get-go. Yeah. And sometimes if you just didn't bring something that was that funny, or if someone else just couldn't play off of it very well and you just got to move on, then I go back and listen. I'm like, man, if I had it better, we could have made that a funnier, like it kind of just fell off and we could have tried to make it funnier, but then that would totally lose the whole premise of the show of being like off the cuff. And I know, like you said earlier, where you do one by yourself every week or every other week. I told Delvin, I was like, if there's ever a week where we can't make the schedule at that 8 a.m. Sunday, you better believe that I'll just do one by myself. And he's like, do you think you could talk in a microphone for an hour? And I was like, you're an idiot if you don't think I can talk to myself for an hour. That's the one thing I can do. I was like, that's one thing I can fly through that. Don't even worry about it.
I'm surprised that I don't know how long we've had 4 on for. I'm surprised how smooth it goes with having 4 voices on this podcast. Before we started doing 4, I'd be like, oh, 4. All right. Because you would get worried about people talking over each other and all this other stuff. But I've been shocked and surprised how well it's worked with when all 4 of us are on, to where it does go smoothly and like the flow back and forth between all the people. And we acquired that pretty quickly. So I thought when there was going to be 4 of us that was going to be a problem, but it really hasn't been. Mm-hmm. So I've been surprised by that, but yeah.
Well, one thing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. And one thing I'd like one day, which is not, it's just on my wish list, is like I said earlier, I'd love to take some improv classes. Just not to go and be some comedian somewhere, but for
exactly. I thought that same thing. I was like, maybe we as a group could do something like that, and it would help our ability to come up with something off the top of our heads quicker and better. Because I know when we did have our episode where we had 4 people, and there's a reason why we only had one episode with 4 people. It's just because no one shut up. So everyone was always talking, and so I was like, well, maybe we're not the type of group that can do that.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult for me. Like even if I wanted to just by myself to take improv classes, a little bit behind the scenes here. I don't know. We don't talk about it too much on the podcast, but me, Jason, and Ian have overnight jobs. They're a graveyard shift people, mm-hmm. And so that just makes it kind kind of difficult, even just individually to go take improv classes because would have to do them at night, I guess. But so yeah, it's probably one drawback with the four of us is that we already individually have crazy schedules. But then it also kind of says something about us too, that we can get together for the podcast as regularly as we do, considering that there's four of us with four different crazy schedules. So I'm grateful for that we make it work regardless of our insane schedules. But yeah, I'd love for some, because I think we do have good senses of humor. It's just with improv, because like what I know about improv is that a lot like when people are training is that a lot of the rules seem kind of counterintuitive, and you have to kind of break yourself of some of these like instincts that you'll have to go against the improv kind of approach. And it's one of those things where you think about it too much, then you're going to ruin it. Yep. So you have to kind of like just go along with it.
Something that I've always been a huge fan of comedy. I've listened to like hundreds of hours of stand-up comedy, improv comedy, something that's always been a passion of mine, and something I've written jokes before to try and get like a tight 5 down, like of stand-up. I always say I'm more conversationally funny than I would be stand-up funny, but like the rules of improv, and it's something that I think the exact same way as you. It's something that you're going to be hesitant, or you're going to have to fight your own natural, like, being like, you're going to have to jump in full force, and like, or if something you might feel like is going wrong in your head, you just got to stick with it. That was kind of like the biggest for me, is if you think something's like going off the rails or it's not quite funny, it's like stick it through and it'll probably get there. And then it'll be worth it when it gets there. Yeah. And so then also we just use so many different types of humor, like braggadocious or self-deprecating, or me just like shitting on my friends and them giving it back, or like just a goofy story. I think in one of my podcasts, I basically take the storyline of what was it? The episode where Jerry breaks his arm in Parks and Rec, and I try and pass it off as my own, and Alex tries calling me out on it, but I just won't let him. Like, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was just wondering exactly what it is that you guys had seen as like your biggest, because on our side, I think our biggest weakness is trying to grow too fast too soon, and Alex for sure, definitely Alex. But trying to go
once we get that cricket more comfortable with being on mic and in front of the camera, we're gonna have the official switch over.
He's in the middle of taking improv classes.
Alex would never.
We've been getting good reports on him.
But man, for our schedule though, online classes is the best thing that could have ever happened to us, because that means that Alex can't ever have the excuse that he's in class. I can't record today, guys. I got to go to class. No, you don't. Sit down. Shut up.
The online improv classes, I wonder if that's how effective that would be.
Yeah, it would be weird,
because I am taking online classes for art, but for improv, I feel like I want to be.
Yeah, you would get rid of because I think a big part of it is creating the set in your head, but still interacting with the person. So I think if you took that physicality out of it, and it was just maybe at most like a video camera, I feel like you'd lose almost half of what you get out of improv.
Right.
And then you would lose body language and everything like that.
Yeah. Well, before we get even deeper here, do you guys want to do some actual can't sit still stuff? Do you guys have topics?
I brought one.
You brought one?
Yeah, I brought
now,
one.
Let me ask, did you guys each bring one, or did you
bring one as a group?
Bring one as a group?
I have like a note section on my phone that has just like stuff like segments, podcast topics, and stuff. I would say I have more than one. I have several.
I have 20.
Okay, that's perfect.
But yeah, however many you guys want to do, however long you want to go, we're ready.
I was just thinking we could each just do one, and I could go first if you'd like. The first one that I have here is Bigfoot 2020's new hero. So I make a stupid little title for each one of mine. There is a Rocky Mountain community that is celebrating the Bigfoot as the social distance champion of 2020. And so this is a town. It's in McDowell County. And September, they traditionally is when visitors get big to do like a Bigfoot tour, and they have this big celebration, this town celebration, where it's like a scavenger hunt looking for Bigfoot. And normally it's in July, but they moved it to September, and so they've completely reworked it in a way that I think is a really great, because not only are they doing it, but they're making it work for like to fit social guidelines for COVID, that damn thing that's just touching everything at this point. And so all the posters have Bigfoot like Sasquatch wearing a mask and like telling him like to stay 6 foot apart, like as he's hiding behind trees and stuff like that. And the scavenger hunt has been spread out throughout the whole town now, not just like a certain area. That way it can keep people more distant, and it's going to give you more time to get from spot to spot, giving people enough time so that you're not bunching up at one thing. And I just love that they made the Bigfoot hunt a COVID Bigfoot hunt, because now he's got like masks and everything. It's just really socially aware.
I'm just trying to picture Bigfoot with a mask on.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good from all their posters that they had.
He'd probably have to be specially sewed, as big as he is. I guess depending on what Bigfoot that you.
I don't know if you've seen it here in town, because we both live in the same town, right? All of us. There's a house, I can't even remember what road it's off of, but I don't want to dox them, where they have 2 giant lion heads, and the lion heads have had masks on for like the past couple of months.
Yeah.
Those guys are great. I'm trying to convince my boss, because I always make fun of him for being richer than I am. I'm trying to convince him to get both a Bigfoot that wears the masks and lions in front of his driveway that have masks on, because he's obsessed with the idea of all these Bigfoot cutouts that everyone seems to have in his yard. So he wants to get one, but his wife won't let him.
I want to see.
I've never seen those.
I want to see Bigfoot yelling at people wearing face masks.
They put on their mask.
Yeah. Just have like a little voice box in it, so that every time somebody walks by without a mask, it just like yells
6 foot apart.
Yell at them, yeah.
6 foot apart. Just every time you set off the motion detector.
Yeah, but it would have to be specifically for those that aren't wearing the mask, though, because otherwise you're just yelling at people that are abiding by the rules.
And you can yell at them too.
Yeah, just yell at them too. It doesn't really matter.
See, no, I've never noticed, because you just said you haven't seen those Bigfoot cutouts. I didn't notice him either. And me and him were coming back from work one day, me and my manager, and he was like, "You haven't seen them? Here." And then we like totally spent a half an hour going. He's like, "There's one right over here by this house. Hold on, let me take you to this next town. There's one right there." He's like, "Let me take you over by the mall. Here's one right here. This person's got one in their yard." And I was like, "I've never noticed these before, but there are like 5 Bigfoot cutouts on just the way to work." And I was just like, "This is crazy." And now his wife says he won't let him get one. I think he just gets one and hides it behind a tree.
Yeah, no wonder he hasn't really been seen. I mean, you make cardboard cutouts of him, you put them everywhere, and people don't even notice him. So, I mean, he could live in town.
He's probably in line at like a McDonald's somewhere in a drive-through, and just no one's paying him any attention. That guy's got a long beard, huh?
Hide in plain sight. Yeah,
that's the best place to do it. Yeah, I mean, it makes the most sense.
I think that's something that we could make like lore. I don't know why I do this, but when I get bored, I just go on like our city website, and I'll just look at like the local things they have going on. And they have emails, they have ways that you can reach out to them. I should email them and be like, "Listen, like $500 to buy us a good amount of cardboard cutouts of Sasquatch. I think it would be funny lore for the city if we just hit them everywhere, and give me the funds. And then I will work it out, and we will just hide Sasquatches everywhere. It'll be a fun city game."
I mean,
and I tell you what,
it is 2020. Anything could happen.
Right. So, I mean, if you go to Spirit Halloween, you realize how easy it is to make an animatronic. So, I mean, we could go all out, have animatronic Bigfoots everywhere.
Well, those things are about to pop up like crazy.
You could have him moon people. You could have him flip people off. You could have him tell people to wear their masks. I mean, the options are endless.
I love it.
They would have to look as good as what the dinosaurs on Jurassic Park look.
No. The worse they look, the better, because you're going to be like, at this point, I just think that they ran out of Bigfoot cutouts, so they just started stapling hair to like old presidential cutouts and like mayoral cutouts. They just started stapling old like dog fur to it.
Oh no.
That's your Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's what we ought to do. Now that makes me want to go as Bigfoot for Halloween.
There you go. Yeah. But have the mask on. Mask or no mask?
Mask, obviously. 2020. Obviously. You have to wear a mask. Did I ever tell you, JJ, about the time that I was working at the bar and there was the costume contest?
Uh-huh.
And that there was a person that came in and they were dressed as Bigfoot. And it was honestly a really good costume. He looked like he put some time into it.
Was it
but
like a
it
suit?
had to be the most miserable costume too, because it had to be so hot.
Did he have shoes on, or was he rocking his actual bare feet?
Well, he had shoes on that looked like bare feet.
Okay. If
So,
you,
like,
as
you
the
had to,
bouncer,
so.
you're the bouncer, you're there, you see this guy rocking a pretty sweet costume for Bigfoot. You see he's not wearing shoes, but you're inside of an establishment. You just look the other way.
I looked the other way on a lot of stuff, so yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
I've looked away at worse. So.
On a lot, yeah, that's true.
I mean, I've told you some of the stories on it. I was pretty relaxed whenever it came to being a bouncer.
Short of starting a fight, Delvin's not going to throw you out.
That sounds more like a you problem there, guy. So I'm just not interested.
What do we got going on over here? A drug deal? All right, guys, just keep it down.
Remember, I get 10%.
Leave it in stall 3. What topic did you guys got?
I got one here. I can go. So an employee at a children's toy store accidentally added WAP to the toy store's playlist.
Oh my God, that's hilarious, because right before you guys joined the call, I was saying WAP just so Delvin would be like, don't say that, they're about to join. Stop singing WAP.
So when the song came on, she was stuck emptying a register and could not immediately get over to her phone that was actually playing the songs. I guess the employee's manager was gone, so they decided, well, I'm just going to play some music over the speakers because they're not here. I'll just play whatever. She did not mean, or he or she, I can't remember if it was he or she, but I think it was she. She did not mean to play the song. So she was stuck emptying the register. The song came on, and to her horror, she just looks up, and people who are in the store are looking at her like, what the? Yeah, so she, I guess, finally got, because she was dealing with money, emptying the register. She's like, oh, I can't leave this money.
That. Yeah,
I have to stop this song. This is awful. So she finally gets over there, turns the song off, then has to get on the PA and apologize to everyone in the store. So then she offered everybody free gift wrapping.
See, what I would have done if I was that cashier, I would have been like, got on the intercom and be like, I apologize to everybody. Someone hacked our system. Like, you throw that blame somewhere, anywhere someone could take it. You just be like, that wasn't me. That was someone else. I'm not the one playing WAP.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw this in here right now. Mom, Dad, I know you're listening. Please heed my warning. For the love of God, do not look up that song. Just take her word for it. Probably shouldn't be playing in a toy store, and just don't Google it if you could, Mom, please.
See, I imagine in this scenario that it's almost like a movie type situation where she's like counting, and then all of a sudden it comes on, and then you just see her look down and she's like, well, I gotta finish. And so she just continues to count, but there's like a bead of sweat coming down, and then she like looks around and she sees everybody's faces just getting like turned to absolute horror, and then she's just like trying to count as fast as she possibly can, and it just starts like really getting into the song, and more people are just like looking around confused, and then she just starts throwing money around so that she can just hurry up and get it done. She just like writes down a number and immediately sprints to it, stops it, and she's just like, okay.
We had something similar when I was working at the movie theater. Someone accidentally played a horror movie in front of a kids movie. Like the previews came on and it was a horror movie instead of that. Cause like the way it's all computerized up in the booth, and you can switch movies back and forth if you need to. And someone accidentally played like it instead of like the Trolls movie. It didn't get too far in, but it was enough for people to be like, what's happening?
Wow. It's like,
I've been in a store before. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
I've been in a store before where something like that happened, where someone was up front stocking, and then they were like, all right, hey, I'm going to go back in the back and grab another cart. And the music stopped. And I was like, huh. And then the next thing I hear is they're playing Candy Crush. And so you just hear like, boop, 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 bring, da, 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 boom, boom, ba, da, da, da. And then like an ad popped up, and they were like watching the ad for like, hey, Colgate, the 9 out of 10 dentists say brush your teeth. And then it goes back to the, and I'm like, do they know that everyone in the store now knows that you did not go back to get another cart of stock, that you went back there and you're playing Candy Crush right now?
Mortified. I I remember hearing when Deadpool, the Ryan Reynolds film, dropped, that people took their kids not realizing it was a rated R movie.
That was part of their marketing technique, was to make it seem like it wasn't a rated R superhero movie, that instead it was like, because they had a big push because it was coming out like Valentine's weekend. They had a big push to make it seem like it was a love story. And I heard a few like horror stories of people who tweeted out, and it worked. The marketing did work on a few people, where people just showed up and they were like, this is a lot different. And then I think one person said, like, tweeted about they were sitting next to a pretty like a middle-aged girl and her clearly elderly mom, and thinking that it was not a rated R Deadpool movie, and that's just the hilarity of that. But man, WAP at a kid's store, that's something else.
In both instances, the song and Deadpool movie, they're like aggressively like adult.
Oh yeah. I mean, there is no censored version of WAP. Yeah, I mean, if you tried to make one, I don't know if they have. I mean, there wouldn't be any lyrics; it'd just be music.
Yeah.
Like, wait, where's
my dad? I love my dad, but like, and he, when we were growing up, I would sit down with him, and watch just the craziest kung fu movies, action movies. All kinds of just like, I remember watching Shogun Assassin at like age 5, and that movie has decapitations and ninjas murdering people and samurais and stuff. And but now in his old age, he's in his early 60s, and he's getting a little bit more into the Bible and this and that. And his complaint with movies isn't violence or anything; it's the cursing. That's the same thing with like for my parents, for example. Like, my dad's 60 and my mom just turned a number, and so she would get mad if I said it, but they don't get mad at the topics we talk about. We talked about glory holes for 3 episodes, I think, and she never brought anything up about that, but she was like, you say the F word just a little bit too much for my taste. And I was like, really? That's what you're gonna pick out of all the grievances? How I'm just yelling and berating my friends. We're talking overt sexuality in like public spaces, and you're like, yeah, but that F word keeps coming up. Yeah,
and I'm like, I've heard you call people worse.
Does it worry that she doesn't know what it is, and she's just gonna incorporate in some conversation somewhere? She's like, oh yeah, I was listening about glory holes, and she thinks it's something else. Or are you more worried?
No, she thinks it's like someone's talking about a restaurant and they describe it as a little hole in the wall. And my mom was like, we just went to this great little glory hole restaurant. And Mom, no, what? Huh? And she's like, we had the best spaghetti. And I'm like, I don't think that means what you think it means.
But the whole, like, my dad will be okay with watching a gangster movie where people get murdered. When somebody's shooting somebody else, and if they say shit or drop an F-bomb because they're getting shot at, then he has a problem with the verbiage,
the language,
more so than the fact that somebody's trying to murder somebody else. And I try to like have a logical conversation with him about it. I'm like, I can't watch The Sopranos or Goodfellas if they're saying shoot or dang or what, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because it's gonna take me out of the whole thing. Like,
that's not true dialogue. True dialogue is a lot more darker.
Fiddlesticks.
So but it just made me think of that when you were saying like an edited version of WAP or an edited version of an NWA song or something.
Well, you say that, but I think the most like famous Clint Eastwood line is when he's calling somebody a punk. So that's pretty soft. So you're like, well, it might work. It worked for him. I feel like it's just how cool's the character.
Yeah, but that's Clint Eastwood. Yeah. So I mean,
if I called someone a punk on TV, they'd be like, this guy's a nerd. What was he, homeschooled?
I remember as a kid. Oh, I remember as a kid. My mom took me to see Friday the 13th, the remake, which was terrible. And she took me in there and she was like, I did not know there was going to be this much killing in there. I was like, it's Friday the 13th. I'm like 12 years old. I know that there's this much killing in this. I was like, what else is this movie? It's about a serial killer. What could it possibly be?
And it's a remake. You know, there was an original, right?
Yeah, and she watched the original. She watched it all the time. But yeah, so on that, we were watching the movie, and then there was a sex scene, I think, that popped up, and she was just like, "Oh, cover your eyes," and I was just like, "Oh, yeah." And yeah, and so she was just like, "I hope you didn't see any of that," and I was just like, "What did I even go?"
And you just say, "Mom, you know I have a laptop, right? You know I have the internet at my fingertips." I was just like,
right? Why did I even go if I wasn't supposed to see any of that movie? Was it for you because you hate that movie? So what was the point?
Yeah, when I was younger, I didn't have the full on adult content on the internet, because my internet while I was in high school was the dial up.
Dial up. That's what we had.
To see one female part, I probably would have had to wait like 20 minutes for it to load, and I probably would have been bored and probably had left the house by then.
Oh, yeah.
So
I remember being a kid and trying to load a Family Guy clip, and it took 3 hours to load a minute 30 Family Guy clip on YouTube, and I was like, that was so not worth it.
On the PA thing, as far as the WAP thing, when I was a lifeguard years ago, and the guy that I think was running the pool at the time thought it would be funny, and at the time we didn't play iPods or anything like that. I don't even know if they existed, but he got on that. We were playing the radio, and he thought it'd be funny. He just got on the PA. There wasn't a lot of people at the pool at the time. He got on the PA and was like, "Hey, I dedicate this next song to this random lifeguard that's in the chair. The song that played randomly on the radio after this, all I want to do is make love to you." And I died.
Oh no. Oh no.
It was just supposed to be some innocent, like, just random joke. And what are the odds that a song like that we're gonna play next? It was like, I don't know if it's classic rock. And yeah, like her face turned a shade of red that I didn't even know existed. I was like,
so
wow.
Hilarious.
Well, did it like turn over and go, well, it's not wrong?
I was like, dude, that's what you call backfire.
That's when you have to go, I think God's trying to help you out there, buddy. I'd go talk to her, see if she's into it. Because just imagine that being the next song.
Yeah. That broke all the ice that was present, I think.
Your first date's going to go so smoothly now, knowing that was your guys' first conversation.
Why don't we go ahead and move on to my topic real quick? It is very quick. So UK man tries to turn himself in to the authorities 7 different times before he finally is apprehended by the police.
For what crime?
Apparently he had it was a weapons issue. I guess he was caught with a deadly weapon. He wasn't doing anything with it or didn't have, but it was just possession. And I think it was an illegal weapon for him to have.
He had a weapon and he tried telling the police he had the weapon?
No. So he was in jail. And when he was in jail, he busted himself out. And it was on for his mother's birthday. And so he went to his mother's birthday and then came back and said, "Hey, I busted out of jail." And they just said, "Get out of here. We're not arresting you." And he just goes, wait, what?
Everyone gets one. Go ahead and go home.
Yeah.
Wow.
That happened a few years ago. I say a few. It was probably like 6 years ago in America. Some dude killed a guy, and turns out the guy he killed was in a gang, and he was fearful of gang retaliation. He thought he was going to get killed, so he went to the police station and tried turning himself in for murder, and they were like, "Nah, get out of here." Like go up the street. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And like, I remember my dad used to be a 911 dispatcher. So I was like, how would you have handled the situation? He was like, well, I wouldn't have sent him on his way for sure. Like I would have got a police officer to deal with him because that's who he was talking to. He like went to the building and like rang the bell, and a dispatcher was like, how can I help you? And he was just like, I killed someone and I need to be arrested. And they just were like, no, I'm not dealing with that. They just sent him on his way.
It's a Thursday night, and I'm just not interested.
That's one of those things, though, because that guy knows they're going to come down hard on them once someone gets their head out of their ass. He's going to go, they're going to realize I'm not there, and they're going to come and swat me. I'm trying to avoid the swatting. Please let me go back to jail.
Well,
And
they said to him, "There's no warrant out for your arrest, so we're not going to arrest you."
because they already did it. I was arrested.
Well, and he was just like, okay. And then he just turned around and he walked out. And then he came back like 6 other times. And well, in 5 of those times, they just kept turning him away, saying the exact same thing. There's no warrant out for your arrest. We're not arresting you. Finally, on the 7th time, on the 7th time, which took 2 months, they finally arrested him and took it back. And he spent 4 months in jail.
I feel like at that point, if you were the what's up?
They just arrest him for being a nuisance.
Yeah, you're wasting police. You're wasting police funds at this point by constantly bothering us. Man, I feel like if you were that judge, you'd be like, you know what? That counts as time served. He kept trying to come back.
Well, the judge just said that. He was like, I have no reason not to believe that you came back and kept trying to turn yourself in. He said, from every report that I have here, it sounds like you tried to do that and they just wouldn't take you. But the judge did say, he was like, your lawyer though isn't really spelling your timeline out right at all. He was like, but I'm going to go ahead and chalk that up to your lawyer just not being good at his job. and so he was just like, yeah, I mean, 4 months. Go ahead. But honestly, if I'm that guy, I'm like, look, I tried once. You didn't take me. I tried twice. You didn't take me. 3rd time, I'm not trying anymore. I'm staying out and fuck this. I'm done.
Another story just popped into my head again. That was like 3 years ago. I think it was a St. Louis guy, but I could be wrong on the location. He got sentenced to 7 years in prison. And after the 7 years were up, they went to get him out of his cell and be like, all right, last day, like, let's start like the procedure to get you to leave. And he just wasn't there. And it turns out they forgot to pick him up 7 years ago. And so they never arrested him. And he's on paper, he served his time, but he never was actually there. So they were in this weird gray area of how do we handle this? Because in the 7 years, he had turned his life around, started a restaurant, got a family, got a house, and it had not been a problem for like he hadn't committed any crimes on, like he never got caught for anything.
He did,
but like
rehabilitate.
it seems like he did have his rehabilitation. He got that second chance. He got sentenced to prison, but through a sheer luck, never went and served, and yet he's doing a lot better. So a lot of people, I never remember what ended up happening with him. I don't think they took him to prison, but like there was a lot of people on the internet saying like, no, his time's fine. Like, like people speaking like you're doing this to rehabilitate him and get him away from society. Well, people speaking as society, we think he's fine.
Yeah. The timeline, the alternate timeline where he did go to prison, he would have been somebody's something.
Yeah, he would have got out and probably did more crimes and probably went right back in.
That's that same timeline from one of our past episodes where
the ostrich timeline.
Yeah, the ostrich timeline where the ostriches take over New York. So
man, when you say a bit like that, it makes it sound so stupid, but it didn't seem that dumb at the time.
Well, none of our bits ever do. That's the problem. When we go back and we listen to it, it's like, oh my God, what were we thinking?
Ostriches taking over New York.
I hear there's a T-Rex that's going to be taking over New York. I think I read that there's a T-Rex that's going to be auctioned off. I don't know if this has ever happened before. Like a giant,
like a real
T-Rex.
one. I mean, not obviously not an alive one.
T-Rex fossil, like fully assembled fossil, is going to be taken to the Rockefeller Center, which I'm assuming is in New York. And they're going to auction this thing off. It's from South Dakota. It's like 37 feet long and 13 feet tall.
If I had the money and the space, I would make that mine.
Yeah, it's estimated between $6 and $8 million. It says here.
Yeah, who's going to buy this thing? And then
I would love to.
Jealous, but what are you going to do with it? Like, I have a huge Halloween display I put out in my front yard. That'd be great. I don't think fossils probably do well in weather. So
hey, they made it this long.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's true.
13 foot long. Oh no, 13 foot high, 40 foot long.
40 foot long.
188 bones. That makes up the largest, most complete T-Rex skeleton in the world. I'm surprised it's for sale and not like locked up in some museum or laboratory. I'm surprised someone's just going to let Nick Cage buy this.
I think it was. I think it was in a museum at some point, and maybe COVID got the people that, I don't know, they need money, and they're just like, oh, well, we're sitting on this $8 million T-Rex. So
it says it's from England.
It's from England. Okay.
and I think it's been moved around a bunch. And yeah, right. Yeah,
Okay, so it was in South Dakota at one point. All right.
going
Yeah,
to
boy,
Rockefeller.
this T-Rex gets around.
Well, do you know the history of? I'm pretty sure it's Nick Cage. It might be Mel Gibson, but I'm pretty sure it's Nick Cage. He had a T-Rex skull.
Did he?
Well,
Okay.
you know, you can buy a replica T-Rex skull on Wayfair. And as soon as I get that new house, if I do get it, I'm buying one for sure.
Yeah, you got to put a mask on it though.
Whatever. So you can get like yourself a nice little decorative coffee table and then a T-Rex skull. Okay.
Is it to scale?
Yep.
Because
it is to scale. Yeah.
A full scale. Okay.
Nick Cage's. It turns out they tracked it because he owned it for a couple of years. He tracked it back, and turns out it was stolen, and so he just gave it back. I mean, it was like a couple $1 million that he bought it for, and turns out that they tracked it back, and it was stolen from some site, and so he just gave it back to the museum that was in charge of it, and just totally. No, I didn't get his money back. Just totally took the loss on that. Although that's really great of him to do.
I wish we all had Nick Cage money. That's going to be a new type of money, is Nick Cage money.
I think his Action Comics #1 is the most expensive one in the world. I think the Nick Cage personally owned 10 out of 10 Action Comics sold for like $2 or $3 million at auction. Which seems so weird because if a comic book is $2 to $3 million, I really feel like they're undervaluing this T-Rex.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a goddamn T-Rex. I mean, you can't
if you can buy it through a very lucrative like Kickstarter campaign, I feel like that's not enough money for the T-Rex.
Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna stay on this one and see who buys it because I need to know.
Yeah, you need a special kind of buyer though too, because exactly like where are you gonna put it? So I guess you can't ask too much for it because nobody's gonna buy something for $20 million that they're gonna have to spend like $1 million just to store or to have a place to put it. But I don't know. Yeah, I'd be interested to see who buys this thing.
Now let's say
the person that has a giant mansion that just has the open foyer in order to be able to put a T-Rex in there, and that's what you put in there because that's like that sets you up for what your house is gonna be.
Now, let's say that person who buys it then dies, and this goes to their next of kin. What is the state and federal tax for for giving someone a T-Rex skeleton?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd say it's about $1 million for every year it's been around. So 68 million years.
Does that only appreciate, or do you think that depreciates?
Oh, it's gotta appreciate.
Yeah, it's probably hit that cap.
Appreciate until they have like that SpongeBob episode where they open up the warehouse and they found all the hats. But there's going to be just one dinosaur graveyard in like 2028 that gets found. And they're like, we just found like 200 complete dinosaur skeletons. And then your dinosaur skeleton market, the bubble pops. And now your T-Rex is worth nothing because they just found 200 of them.
Yeah, now it's only worth $200,000.
Damn, this thing is huge.
If a T-Rex is worth nothing, I don't want to live in that world. I mean,
that's so good.
I got another quick topic real quick. There's Florida. I was like, man, I got to do a Florida because you guys done a lot of Florida man stories, right? This isn't really like,
that's what we work on. We made the agreement that every 20 episodes is going to be a Florida man special.
Oh, just completely Florida?
Yeah, that's the whole episode is going to be Florida from the past year.
Well, there's plenty of stories to come out of there, so it kind of
Right. I got something real quick from Florida. So there's a new sign was being put up welcoming people to a Florida town. So this new sign was colorful. It had lights. It was perfect, right? Good, right? Except for what they put it in the wrong town.
Yes. I know it's not where it's supposed to be. I know it.
Welcome to Dania Beach. But the problem was they put it up in Hollywood, Florida. Then Hollywood, Florida got all mad about it.
Well, I'd be more mad if I was the other kid of town. Like, that's our sign. Give it back, Hollywood. Like, what the hell?
Apparently, this is not the first time this has happened either, because I guess there's like, they said that people have mistaken that part of town for actually Dania Beach, and it's not. And there's been a sign there before, which I guess is why those workers went out and put a sign there. There might have been something there before, and they're like, "Whoa, just gotta," because they were putting up new signs, so got to replace some of this old stuff. And they probably, I imagine the workers are probably from that area. They probably knew it wasn't, but it's like, well, boss told me put the sign up. I'm going to put the sign up.
Yeah. Those
Do
checks
you
aren't
think
going to find themselves. I don't get paid to tell you where the line is. I just get paid to put up the
Right.
sign.
Do you think that Hollywood, Florida, just is the old man of the situation where like the frisbee lands in his yard and he's just like, well, you're not getting your frisbee back. Well, then this
Yeah.
situation, they're like, you're not getting your sign back.
They just
I
steal
think
the
it-
sign.
I think it's more like Hollywood, Florida gets that sign and they go, no, we're not that. We're not Danopolis or whatever. And then Danopolis is like, no, that's our. Hey, wait a second. Like, what's so bad about being us? Like, hold on, we're a nice beach. And it's just like, then a feud starts, like a Hatfield and McCoy type feud, because Hollywood was just like, hey, get that sign out of here. Be like, well, yeah, we agree, but I don't like the way you said it. Oh man, that's great.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Well, do we
How is it, JJ, that they're already better at this than we are?
they've been doing it for like 9 years. So, I mean,
Oh yeah.
they read the
So-
news once. I mean, I go through a pretty obscure way of getting my topics just because I want no one else to like have read it.
Okay. So you try to just get the most like undiscovered weird ass
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah,
From
and
the
almost every, I think about 2/3 of my topic, Delvin and Alex go, yeah, we saw that one. And it's like, come
Aw.
on, man, I'm trying so hard to not have anyone see my topics, and yet they're like, no, we read that like 3 weeks ago. It's like, damn it.
We've devised a very unique method of just saying say one word in order to try to discern. Because if you can understand it off of one word, then you're just like probably shouldn't.
Yeah, we had to do that after the episode where everyone wrote about Mike Tyson and the shark. We had to implement the one word rule. Well, do we want to start wrapping up?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, that works for me.
And by the way, I knew Alex had brought that Japanese toilet thing before. That's why I wanted to bring it again.
Oh.
I had a Japanese thing in my pocket, but to
Just
pull
in
out,
case.
yeah, just in case, about a guy that stuck his face in a woman's butt crack at a department store in Japan. But
Oh my.
Okay.
yeah, well, he said he quote said he did it to refresh my face. So I don't know how you refresh your face with ass, but apparently
How do you do it? Because that's how I do it.
The
That's
air
how you do
pollution is so bad there that's actually cleaner air.
he was a tech sergeant, and they suspended him, and he just retired. It's like he actually said, "Well, I've done this hundreds of times."
What a good backup
But-
plan.
Yeah, I know. So somebody called the police on him when they saw him doing it at a store. I guess he's got away with it unsuspectively for a long time. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you stick your face in people's butts without them knowing or anybody noticing. But apparently, this guy was he was really good at it. So
Good at it. Shit, these are the
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes of face ass.
Jeez, that is insane.
Do you guys want to plug all your stuff and then we'll end up with ours?
Sure, yeah. Let's see. Mind Grenade is a weekly podcast. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're everywhere you get podcasts. There's a feed of the podcast at mindgrenadestudios.com. I post some of my artwork on there. What else? We're on Twitter at mindgrenade1. I tried to kind of put stuff up on there occasionally. I think that's all we got so far. Yeah, that's we have a flyer sitting at the Cold Stone Creamery right now. If you want to, back to that. I was in Chicago the end of last year, 2019, and another part of the reason why I did that the flyer kind of promotion thing is I was in Chicago downtown, and I walked past one of these like little bus stops, and they have like banners on the sides of the bus stops, and there's some kind of financial centric podcast that was advertising on the side of downtown on the side of a bus stop there, and I was like, okay, we're there finally, where podcasting is mainstream enough, where they are putting banners out in the real world.
I remember when I first started listening to podcasts, and I had to explain to people all the time what it is. Like I'd tell my parents or my grandma or my uncle, I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm listening to this podcast." And they're like, "What is that?" And I would always say, "It's like a radio show without the music, and you download it, and so you can pause it whenever you need to."
Right.
And
yeah.
now we're to the point where I don't need to explain every time that I do a podcast. Well, what is that? I talk into a microphone and yell at my friends.
Yeah. So it's kind of reached. It's kind of gotten past that point where, yeah, there's a point there. There's a while there where I would be like podcast, and you can tell the person wasn't. It wasn't kind of penetrating. And now it seems more accessible. People, I mean, fuck, like Conan O'Brien has a podcast, Rob Lowe has a podcast. Like every celebrity now, especially now with the 2020 when all these people, their TV shows, celebrities and whatnot, don't have their normal day job as
using it as another outlet.
Yeah. So it this year alone has kind of pushed it more into the mainstream. I think one of the reasons it's not so mainstream too is that it's not, you can monetize it, but it's not like it's
without a sponsor, you're not going to get you're not going to get money just for listens. You're going to need that sponsorship. No one will give you YouTube money yet, or like the TikTok money, but a sponsor. So even though Apple, you can be putting your stuff up on there, they're never going to say, we'll give you like 2 cents for every 1,000 listens you get, or however it goes. But you got to get that sponsorship first, which we have Anchor.
Yeah. Very impressive.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah,
it's not, they give it to everybody.
Still, it's that thing is like, even though podcasting is a very do-it-yourself type of thing going on, what separates some podcasts from others is how professionally you approach it. Not the content. I mean, we can talk about dick and fart jokes all day long as for content. Yeah, but just the way you like I paying the compliments to Kansas still at the beginning of this podcast is the logo and the name and the premise, and you guys got a sponsor, and just the way you approach it and the sound quality. This is all stuff you think about, and to package the podcast. There's some thought put into it, and I've seen friends there's a high school buddy of mine that saw that we were doing it, and then he tried to do it, but then he changed the name every other episode, and I was like, dude, you're not going to get any traction if you're changing the name slightly every other episode, because then like searching for it's going to be a
nightmare.
Yeah. So there's a difference between just doing it and then really doing it. And like I said earlier, it's like I don't think I'm Joe Rogan or Mark Maron, but I'm at least going to try to approach it professionally, even though we aren't currently monetizing it. But like I'd like to get there someday, but I'm going to treat it like a real thing, even though I don't have crazy delusions of grandeur. But I while I'm doing it, I'm going to do it the right way, or as how I see it. Because like my little nephew, my little 10-year-old nephew, when I listen to him YouTube, I can tell he's watched enough YouTube channels that he's reverse engineered his other people's YouTube channels and then made his own, which is the way I did Mind Grenade. Was I have no broadcasting experience at all. I just reverse engineered what I learned from listening to my favorite podcasts and whatnot, and then just got in there and did it myself. But yeah, so
that's like I was saying at the very beginning, whenever I asked you guys like what it is that you think that might be your biggest thing that needs to be fixed, is that on our side, something that I think that we're probably doing, and I don't know that it's such a terrible thing, but at the same time I could see it being a detriment to us, is the fact that we're running before we're even walking. Like we're trying so hard to be something that we haven't even spent the time in there. Like at this point we're 13 episodes in, and now I have the Nuggets of Nothing podcast, which is like 4 episodes in now. And so, I mean, like you were saying, got the logo. We got we started our own broadcasting channel, on YouTube, and we started with video. We've tried to get the sponsorship. I've tried calling other people about multiple different types of sponsorships and everything like that. And something that you guys are doing that probably something that we need to do is refine first, try to run later. That's something that we really need to try to do, is refine a lot of what it is that we're doing. Like our skits are, they're good and everything, but refine them a bit and make sure that they're perfect, and then try to maybe run with it a little bit.
I think,
but I mean,
yeah, I think you guys are great. I'm not blowing smoke up your guys' ass. I think you guys are, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No,
We're not.
I'm honestly, I'm pretty impressed at where you guys
well,
are
we
at.
super appreciate that.
Yeah,
feedback.
absolutely. We do.
Most
Now,
of our
quick
feedback that
question.
we've gotten so far is just from people who personally have Delvin's cell phone number, and they text him. And then I think I said it on the podcast. That's when someone called me fat. But that was before we were doing video. They just said I sound fat.
Video.
That was all the feedback we were getting before. Jacob sounds like he put on weight.
Oh no.
She apologized after the fact, and
because I put her on
it doesn't
blast.
fix everything, but
But
She's
what
not
you're saying,
wrong.
you guys were saying earlier that when you get feedback from somebody that just some rando on the street that came up to you and it's like, oh shit, I listen to your, like that, from even before, like when I started the episode 1, I was like, I'll consider this a success in quotes, or at least approaching it is when I get some rando listening from some other state or something like that. One of the podcasts that inspired me to do my own was a couple guys from Indiana. I've had them on the podcast, guys from Hideous Energy. Love those guys. But they, it's my favorite podcast, and two randos from Indiana that I'd never met before, and I've met them since then in person and on the podcast. But I was like, I want that to happen to this podcast. I want some random person who found it from Nebraska to then chime in and go, oh, I've been listening to you, because it's one thing to get Facebook likes from your family and friends, but then it's awesome to get a bunch of retweets for a tweet that you put up. At least for me on Twitter, it's like 99% people I had never met before. And then on Facebook, it's a complete echo chamber of my friends and family. Yeah. And I love my friends and family and all the support and everything. It's awesome. I'm glad. But strangers aren't obligated to give you credit on something you've done. Where your friends and family are like, no, it's like your mom telling you you're handsome. It's like, and then and taking that to heart, It's like, so
my mom stopped. I mean, I reached a point where she's like, this doesn't work anymore.
So I do like the iTunes reviews we get occasionally, and just the random, but yeah. So but no, you I just I know a handful of local podcasters and stuff, and it might just be like it might just be so how fresh Kansas still is for me, but you guys are definitely my favorite so far out of the local podcasters.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot.
That means an absolute.
I always had a numerical number where I was like, once we start getting this, like this number, then I'll feel like I'm more of a success. Yeah,
you mean downloads?
Yeah, like downloads per episode. And then looking at where we're at, I'm like, well, we're not there yet, but I'm like, these numbers are a lot bigger. I'm not going to throw out any of our numbers just because I don't want people to be like, right. But we're totally above where I thought we were going to be.
I whenever, like a little while ago, I've kind of more of the analytical side of things, where I created a growth chart, and I said, here's the number we're at. If we hit 6% every single month, this is where we're going to end at. And when we started, we were like, if we end up even getting, let's say, I think it was like 1,000 is what we talked about, 1,000 listens by the end of the year, if we did one every single week. I was like, if that's what we ended up doing, and on the projection of it, it's well over what it is that we would have ever expected. And to all of our listeners, we absolutely appreciate that. And it's an absolute dream come true to be able to do it for everybody. And if they chuckle once, that's perfect for it.
Yeah. It's good to set goals like that, because even if you don't reach it, at least you're aiming. You'll get at least even if you don't get it's like if you'll at least get close or surpass it. You always hear about these not Patreon, but the Kickstarters, where like somebody went for this much money, but then they overshot it, or but if you don't set goals, then you don't.
It's kind of like a goal is like fuel. Once you get that goal, you're putting gas in the car and you're ready to go. But you're not going to get there without a goal.
Yeah. With a lot of things in life, if you're not trying to move forward, then you end up just moving backwards, even if you're just trying to stand still. So
exactly. That's kind of the stance that we took on this as well, that we were just going to try to move forward, even if the numbers never bared it out, that we were
even if it's just me and Delvin listening to ourselves talk. We're going to do it.
Yeah, you guys obviously enjoy what you're doing, so, and that's an important part of it too, to keep it going. So
and we absolutely, like I said, we both listen to Mind Grenade. We enjoy it. We love it. It gives us a chuckle almost every single time that we listen to it. And there's not much out there that I can actually say does that for me all the time, but you guys definitely do that, and it's been fantastic to listen to. I also want to say I had left a comment and you guys had shouted that out, and I thought that was really cool. And I really appreciate you guys doing that, and it made me feel connected to it, which was fantastic.
Yeah,
but I just wanted to thank you guys. Just thank you so much for agreeing, because I was like, you know what? I don't know. Maybe it's a long shot. Maybe these guys are like, get up to 1 million views a stream, kid. And then you can step up with the big dogs. Or maybe they'll be like, hell yeah, dude, like, let's totally do it. But thank you guys so much for coming on. And I mean, we've already mentioned it before on the podcast. We're on Twitter and for Can't Sit Still Pod, and Gmail, Can't Sit Still Pod. No, Can't Sit Still Podcast on Twitter. And then it's Can't Sit Still Pod @gmail.com. And that's where
they're both Can't Sit Still Pod.
Interesting. Well, who knows? I mean,
and then obviously, if you guys have never listened to Mind Grenade, definitely go listen to Mind Grenade. Yeah. And then at the same time, if you guys, anybody who listens to Mind Grenade, I don't know if you guys have ever done videos before, but if you've ever wanted to see what Hector and Jason look like, you can now do that by coming to ours. Or if you guys are putting it up on your own YouTube or whatever it is that you guys are going to do with the video, they can go see it on yours. So now everybody can see what everybody looks like. And as we say all the time, sorry that you have to look at this and that.
Yeah, Matt and Ian will still be a mystery, but it's better that way.
yeah, right. It kind of works out. You got to have some sort of mystery.
So I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you everybody for listening. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Bye guys.
Bye.
All right.